happening in
Okay,
this.
so you see this as just a rough patch. This is a negotiating tactic, but the negotiating tactic, if it goes on, then let's not kid ourselves. At the present moment, not just in officialdom, because we understand that trade negotiations are something that every country has to figure out with its trade partners. It's a conversation that the Americans have the right to get the best deal for themselves. That is Donald Trump's job. And our Prime Minister has the job to get the best deal for India. Somewhere in between, you come to an agreement. But the rhetoric sometimes becomes flooded to the public. And when we are being told that you're a dead economy and, it's Modi's war in Ukraine, with nothing to do with what's happening in Russia, Ukraine. And we will tell you who you can trade with and you can talk to and who you can't meet. Well, the British tried doing that and that didn't end well for them. So that's something that we don't take well here. But let's get a different perspective here, because like I said, the arc of the Indian-Japanese association has been unaffected, but there is a multilateral association that does get affected. I don't know where the Quad goes from here in the next couple of months, because if the Quad was heading in one direction, well, BRICS and SCO seems to be heading in a different direction. There is going to be a PM Modi Xi Jinping meeting, which hasn't happened in 7 years. There's a good reason it hasn't happened in 7 years, and there's a good reason it's happening right now. I don't think that's a passing sentiment either. Astha Chadha is joining us. Astha Chadha, let's look at we'll have to look at the larger global affairs, because we can look at from an Indian perspective that 50% tariffs on us, but it's the tariffs on the Japanese. Even though there has been a trade agreement, there's still tariffs. There are tariffs on the Koreans, on the Europeans, on the Canadians, on the Mexicans, on everyone. Even the Pakistanis have 20% tariffs slapped on them. So what is going on? How long does this play out before things settle back to the routines that you and I are more familiar with?
Nice question. I mean, let me begin by saying that I don't think the tariffs are going away anytime soon unless President Trump and his administration sees that they need to buckle. As my previous panelist was mentioning, they are obviously a negotiating tactic. They are a tactic of intimidation, I would say, from Trump administration. But at the same time, I think they are not very welcome even inside America. Very recently, their Supreme Court moved this resolution saying that they are not sure if President Trump has the powers to exercise.
That's a federal appeals court. The matter goes to Supreme Court very shortly for people watching the broadcast. Carry on, Astha.
But that's the hope. Yeah, but that's the hope. That's where it's going to go. But anyway, talking about India and Japan, I think in case of Japan, they rushed to strike some sort of a deal that was again not an equal deal. But remember that Japan is an ally of the United States. Japan reiterates every single time that for their defense capabilities, US is inevitable. It's central, right? It's indispensable. India, however, does not have that as part of its foreign policy. India does not work with allies. We work with alignments. We work with like-minded partners and on issue-based alignments. So those are two very different conceptualizations of how to do foreign policy. That's
okay, but
one.
I have to ask you then this question that, okay, all of us are flummoxed, okay? The Japanese are flummoxed, the Europeans are flummoxed. I mean, the India-UK trade agreement, which has been being worked on, and suddenly the FTA happened, and that also with the Labour government. It happened very quickly because they're also flummoxed. We are all looking for alternatives because an economic hit is coming, okay? The economic hit will affect America as well. Things will become expensive, have already become more expensive over there. But yes, for exporters in my country, in Japan, in Europe, whose primary markets were North America, it's very confusing. People who are American clients are holding off orders, not because they don't want the products, because they don't know what's going to happen next month, 2 weeks later. It might be 20%, it might be 50%. 20% and 50% are margins in companies. That's the difference between a profitable company and you're sunk, okay? So things are being held. So we are now going to have to figure it out. But the question is, can the rest of us, Astha, get together and figure out enough of these bilateral trade movement that we can keep the global grease of the economy going?
Again, that question is quite loaded. Let me tell you, there is absolutely no economy that is going to go unaffected with what is happening. If there is going to be a crash, if we are looking forward to a lot more uncertainty, this is going to impact everyone. So there is no escape from it. That's number one. But since you said, what about other partnerships? I do see a lot of opportunity, which is why this India-Japan meeting was very well timed, which is why also Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping's meeting is very well timed, because everybody is calculating their own best interest. As far as trade is concerned, I don't see India feeling very cushioned this time, because the United States is a major partner. At the same time, I think what the government is hoping to do is, one, establish alternative trade channels, alternative trade partners, so that we are at least in some way safeguarded in the long run. That's one. Two, what I think the Indian government is looking at right now is making sure that US gets the point that we are not going to bump it, at least not in the short run.
Okay, so
which is why
the purpose of this visit of Prime Minister Modi to Japan has